catch myself, help me out. Had my bed, then you let go. I'm fighting with that too. I'm standing alone, just like that. You left me cold. I guess at the end of the day, it's just me and my phone.
Welcome back to Quiz Mindset. If this is your first time joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are super excited to have you here with us tonight. Listen, I can't wait for you to hear this story tonight. It's another powerful story. Listen, if you've been following us so far, then you know that it just keeps getting better and better and better. I know, right? But before we head into it, I want you, if you have not done it already, I want you to go right ahead and make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Just hit that subscription button just down below and make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. All right, so I'm excited. I know you can't wait, so I'm not going to hold you up any longer. I'm going to go right ahead and introduce you to our guest of tonight as we welcome on Quiz Mindset platform, Mia Wallace. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. It's Mia Wallace.
Mia, sorry.
Yeah.
I always call it wrong. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yes, and thank you.
Yes. Yes. You are most welcome. So, Mia, we are super excited to have you here tonight. I know everyone is watching right now and they can't wait to hear your story. But before we run into it and we begin to tell them about your story, I want you to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay. So, who am I? A daughter. I am a sister, a mother. I wear many hats, from being an entrepreneur and an employee. And I am a published author. So I do a lot of things. For me, a great platform on faith-based suicide prevention, health awareness. Thanks.
Awesome, awesome, guys. So we know that we are in for a story tonight because of everything that she does. But Mia, I have to ask, how did you get involved in all of that? Where did it start for you?
It kind of started from just being a child that had to grow up as an adult. So, being a child, but forced to kind of grow up a little bit. So I took on many hats of being a sister and a mother at the same time. So then in those responsibilities, I took on more tasks than I thought I could handle. But then I was like, oh, I'm handling it. I'm moving forward. So then it was like, now what I think I should be able to conquer. But now that I have God with me, I'm like, okay, do that. I got to conquer what you want me to conquer. Okay, I get it. I'm surrendering. I'm going. I know I'm not in control, but that is how the journey started. It was within me, but now learning how to birth it out.
Wow. You heard that, ladies? Learning how to birth it out. So I have to ask this question, and this is the question that we ask all the time, but before we get into your story, we want to start from the beginning where we can begin to peel back the layers and really get to know the essence of who you are. So I want you to tell us tonight where it all started for you.
It all started on my journey with my God, like my relationship with him, not religion with him, but my actual relationship with him. So it started, of course, with a heartbreak. So I got my heart broken, and I said, everyone I loved left. They were gone. They were no longer here. And I heard a whisper in the moment of me, like crying out on the floor. And I heard, and I've always been here, and I love you. And so I was like, this is amazing. And it was the first time I've ever experienced God in a different way, a different light, and decided to go chase after that atmosphere. So what I felt in that presence, let me correct it. I went after his presence. So all across, started attending conferences and events just to hear and receiving presence that I felt in my room after this heartbreak. But also one moment, and I was crying, I realized that I was crying more just for this relationship and the loss of my father at that time. It was something deeper within the core. So as I was mentioning, I went chasing after his atmosphere and his presence, and I found him. And the Holy Spirit called me out at one of these amazing conferences, and he told me that if I'm going to take this journey, I have to go back and get the little girl from my childhood. Now, a lot of people didn't know what happened in my childhood, and for me, meant like dun, 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 just the end of the world. So I was like, no, because I knew exactly where I left her. I left her in my grandmother's house the day that I lost my mom by suicide. And so I was like, God, no. That's the one thing that I never wanted to expose. That's the one thing I never wanted to talk about. And so at first I took that as a punishment. Like, no, if you're going to come with me and you got to trust me on this journey, this is your story. This is your truth. You have to own this part, and you have to go back and get the little girl, because you must be together for this journey. This is something that I talk about in my book. So I try to do this on my own and get the quick way out of it. And it didn't work. I'm going to be honest. I went into the darkness of this. And a lot of the time I tried to resist the process. Like, no, you said yes, and we're going to go through this process. So at this process and this journey, I was beginning to build a relationship with God, but he started to show it to me on suicide and my loss in suicide, but also those who are battling with suicide. So that's really how this whole journey of me becoming him now started.
Wow. I'm here sitting at the edge of my seat. I'm like, you said something there that really caught my attention. You said, God said to go back and get that little girl. And I know for someone who's watching right now, if you've been through something from your childhood, most of the times we think that we've gotten over it. And we don't recognize until something traumatic happens that sends us back there. And it was that relationship that sent you back there. For those who may be watching right now, it might be something else that would send you back there. But I want you to pay special attention to what is being shared here tonight, because if you listen really well, I trust and believe you could get the keys that can help you out tonight. All right. So you said, Mia, that when you were growing up at that time and your mom had passed away in the basement, walk us through that and how that occurred and how you felt having to deal with that at such a young age.
So the way I dealt with it was suppressing it within. So back in the time in the 80s, I grew up in the era where what happened in this house stay in this house. So nobody in my family talked about it, anything. So what I was doing, and it was also a blessing as well. Like the Father had protected my mind, but my way of protecting myself was to just off, and it didn't happen. Mom no longer existed. I had made up this whole new story of just what my life would be and how it was. And so in order for me to go back to the girl, I had to own my story. I had to go back and get her. I had to go back, grieve the loss. I had to let her speak for herself. And then I needed to get the professional help to deal with that inner child hurt and able to maneuver in my adult self.
So how were you able to bury such a thing as that? Because what age were you when your mom passed away?
4 years old.
Wow.
Well, I was little.
So at the age of So at the age of 4, your mom passed away. And then as you grew, what were some of these things that you did? Because I can, and just my imagination, I'm using it now. I'm thinking that, as you grew up, you didn't even recognize that what you were doing was burying that experience. Okay. So what were some of these things that you did that, that kind of helped you to kind of push that that experience in a corner?
Well, I paid attention to a lot. So I kind of watched how the adults around me were moving, because a lot of them dealt with shame and guilt from her suicide. So for me as a child, watched and observed so much, I didn't want to upset them by asking questions or anything like that. So if they didn't bring it up, I didn't bring it up. Or if they say, oh, you look just like her, I'm just like, thanks. But for me, it was just like, I'm not going to bring it up and we're going to pretend like this never happened. You from the beginning and you didn't know my story, you would never know that part of my story. So it was in the darkness. It stayed hidden. But one thing that we have to do is with our darkness, we have to expose it. Or to be something that is tainted. It's something that the enemy can use ways because it's hidden. But when you bring it to light and you expose it, it's nothing but on it. So that was the different situation. But like I said, it targets us sometimes when we're young because we don't know better. We don't understand. So literally all through my childhood years, my 20s, it was in my mid-30s when I actually met myself. I didn't grow up in the church or none of that. Like that was story. Actually, I come from the complete opposite. So for me to be the first and to realize like, God, everyone I love is gone. And for him, I've always been here. And then when I look at the statistics of a young girl, her mother's by suicide and the high risk of me as well. And it never crossed my mind. That was nothing but God. Protection over my mind. He gets all the credit and glory for that because he knew that a time like this when the rates are just rising, he was going to need someone who could speak light and truth to it. So he sees the suffering. So many people are battling with this and not understanding that it's a war. And God is trying to fight for love you enough to give you free will, that you have to choose him. But a lot of people don't understand that. They just feel the burden and the weight that life is throwing on them. So it's a little, it's different.
Oh yes. But I want you to tell us about some of the signs because we might have someone who's watching right now and they may not even recognize that there's a sign because maybe your family didn't realize that what they were trying to do is not have a conversation about it. Maybe they thought that they were protecting you and that's what they were doing in the moment. So I want you to tell us about some of the signs for those women who are watching us now who might be in that place right now, maybe with their children because of a relative or something that happened. What are some of these things that they can look out for to say, okay, we need to address this?
Okay, one thing that I know for sure is we kind of all know our people want to do is you want to make eye contact. You to their eyes. You want to pay attention to what they say sometimes or what they're doing because sometimes they don't vocally say it, but it's certain things that they're preparing and you can hear it. For instance, like one thing that my mom said was, when I go, make sure Mia is okay. Or just like, can you just always look out for her? It's little signs in a way. And then, but it's really paying attention to like what's not being said, the way that they're moving, the way like something's off. And then you pray. You don't even have to pray, but always be vocal with them. Like, are you thinking about doing more that you speak up or you see that they're struggling in certain areas? You have to, like, what's going on? Let me talk to you and just listen. Because sometimes they don't really need you to talk. They just need to be heard. And then just be like, okay, I'm here. And other signs will be, like I said, like to like their normal routines, which they do, because a lot of people are suffering in silence. So they know how to put that mask on and they can smile. But when your eyes and you see, you can be like, look, I see something. What's going on? I'll talk to you in private. You can talk to me about anything. I will never judge you or be honest. And you have to mean it. And I'm here all times of the day or night and really be there. You can't just say it and not do it. Because sometimes you'll know in your spirit, like something's not right. Something's over my person. This is the one that I'm here for. And so it's just paying attention to the silent signs, the look. If everybody's in a good mood and they're just not, and you're just like, okay, let me call this out. Or they're planning some things for when they're not here. Like, why are you planning this? And be vocal with them. Like, are you thinking about doing this? Your life to the point, are you suffering? Your only hope is to leave? And let's come up with a way to make this work, because you're needed. You have to be here. We're dependent on you, you know, and you give them hope for what's happening.
Wow. Listen, I told you guys it was going to be powerful. Listen to me. I hope you are taking notes, because she is definitely dropping the gems. You know, you really want to take notes here tonight. So, okay, so here I am, and I'm walking through your life now. So now you have grown, you've gotten to that stage where you had that encounter, you know, with what the loss of the relationship. And like you said earlier, you said everybody keeps leaving, and that pretty much gave you the, you know, that light bulb kind of went off for you to recognize that you needed to go back. Now, how was that process for you now when you started to go back and deal with something that you would have buried for so many years? Walk us through that process for you.
So one thing I would say is, don't resist the process. I tried the process, and then I was like, yeah, let me hurry up process. So when I tried to hurry it up, I took myself on all these unnecessary paths that just was taking me deeper in darkness. I started to get depressed, and I was just like, the reasons why is because I was there when that happened, and I couldn't remember. So really, I'm not going to remember, and I was like 34. So I can't remember anything. And then the enemy started using me, saying like, it's your fault. Like, I'm poor. How could it be my fault? But it was the line told to me. And then God, I never told you to go back. I told you. And what that meant was I needed to become whole. She needed to be heard. I silenced her. So I should have spoke up, because I was afraid of what my family would feel, or I didn't want to see them crying and things like that. It was like, no, I had to forgive myself. Like, I should have let you speak. I grieve. And that part of the process, I had to grieve the loss of my mom. I had to grieve the loss of what I thought life would be. And then I had to forgive what I thought was associated with her loss, but in a way of not because it happened, but because you were suffering too. Know that I needed to know. No one sat down and said, this is what happened to you. Like, I had to figure it all out on my own. So it was like, okay, let me figure this and figure this. And by this time of my journey, my dad had passed away, so I couldn't even ask him for questions. So another part of the journey was accepting the unknown to my story that I may not ever know until I go up there and be like, ah, okay, let's talk. So it's accept what is unknown, and knowing recently in this journey that it, because such a time as this, realize that everything in life, God is going to use it for our good, even if it's not his choice, because the decision is ours. But he'll use it still to bring glory to us and him. So it's just like, okay, now let me accept this. So this was acceptance. And then it was just processing it on what God needed me to do to build me, to bring up the character that trauma does. It shows up in the world. It affects who we see him, how we see other people. It just does a whole lot of things. But in order to deal with that trauma, we got to go to the source. Who created us? Who knew us before he placed us in our mother's womb? Who am I? And then once it's, okay, this is who I am, that's a whole process, and it's a whole process. You have to surrender, and surrender doesn't feel good. You truly have to let go and be like, whoa, I got to trust, because I don't know, and it don't feel good. And I'm not going to be like, I used to be like, oh, I'm all that. I don't cry. I cried for years. It felt like 2 years straight. My brother would call me and be like, sis, what you doing, crying? It's like those were tears of healing. They had to be released. I had to cry for stuff. It just had to come out. I was holding it in. But then one thing that we reap from all our joy. So it's just like, okay, this is my story. I gotta own this. And the more and more that I help someone and just share my story, I see God working in them. I met a lady at an event from the loss of her son for 10 years. And she just was blaming herself. And I said, no, that's not, no. God doesn't want us to walk around condemned. That's what the enemy used the weapon for, to get the rest of us bonded and trapped and living in darkness too. Now we gotta not tell the story of what happened, exposing it. But we're gonna share our stories of our lost loved ones because they were here for a reason. Have ended the way that God wanted to, but He's gonna bring light to it. And please believe them, they're not going to this hell and all of that. No. So now that suicide is a forgivable sin, it's died for, and people don't understand that.
Wow. I'm just like, wow. So powerful. I mean, okay, so when you, and I have to go back just a few moments, when your mom passed and you were 4 years old, did you find her when she passed, or were you in this space and it happened and you didn't recognize? Were you the one who walked in on her?
I was actually the last person to speak to her. So my grandmother sent me on this mission. Everybody in the house, do they want something to eat? So I went and asked something to eat, and then she said no. And then as I was leaving out, that's when it happened. So it was just like, whoa, but as a child, I just was terrified of the sound that I was frozen in that spot. And then the last thing I remember is them saying, get Mia. And that's when I was rushed to the base. So I kind of heard some of the commotion above, but I was down there. And even this moment, I really wasn't down there by myself, that God did have an angel with me. Like I wasn't alone. I felt it was okay. Like it was a reassurance that you're going to be okay. What's happening or what's going on, you're going to be okay. And so I just sat on the couch and that's where I left her. Came back from up there. My life was never the same. It was quietness. We're not talking, but you can look at, like I said, you can look in the eyes and you see something, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to get anybody upset. So it's almost like your chills to the point where it's like, okay, you telling me about my mom, or I'm looking at her pictures and I'm like, okay, but no one wanted to sit down and be like, this is what happened. We're going to get through this, or or even get me counseling. That just wasn't done back then.
Wow, that was actually going to be my next question in terms of if you had counseling. So you didn't have counseling, but who was your support through that process? I know you still had your dad. So was he one of the persons who were able, you can lean on for support?
I'll be honest, my support came from my siblings. My bond was that my father had after, that came along. I'm the oldest of 9. So the bond that we have, it was that got me through a lot of trauma, because that was not my only trauma, but that's the main thing. And so my relationship with my siblings and how we got through life was what support. But as I started taking on this journey with God, we had a certain limit. And so He started bringing the resources that truly helped journey as becoming a woman of God, but then also dealing with my trauma, the therapist. And I went to a lot of therapists at first, and I was like, that's not it. And just finding a journey in itself. So then the therapist that I end up finding, she ended up now is my spiritual covering. She's my mentor. It just a whole nother level, but it took for me, I need you to send this person that's going to help me through this, because I'm doing a terrible job, and the last one was a mess. And so I started allowing God to provide me with the resources for my healing, for my journey, to get to the next level, to get to a understanding, to hear Him. So that was where my support came from.
Wow. Okay, so now you've been through that, you've grown, you went back, you found God. And tell me, what led you to write your book? And first, tell us, what's the name of your book?
My first book, called A Child Left Behind by Suicide, From Dark to Light. And the start of this became from me crying on the floor, and I was crying, and I was taking all of this as a punishment. I'm like, God, I'm chasing after you. I'm talking about, I don't even have to get to these conferences. And here you are, call me out in front of, and I thank God for the speaker who told me to go back, but she was obedient. That was not part of what she planned for. Her whole session was on me. And so for her to tell me to do that, and I come out crying, and I'm like, God, why are you punishing me? I made it this 4 years old. I made it this far. Now you're making me address. And so one, like, really crying in that same moment, I heard, get a pen and a paper. And then he started asking, why do you feel like you? And then I started answering questions, and just how I truly felt like this is not fair. First, it was anger. Like, I'm just like, no. And then it got to a point of like, hey, no, what am I really doing? And then it started just pouring. Like, I just started writing with just tears. So then it's almost like Holy Spirit took over. It's like, okay, a collaboration with me and him, and we're going to get this out. Not as a book, but that it was just me getting every press from all those years out. Because how I met my therapist and my mentor now, she had a class called Roots, and we had to the beginning and write out our timeline. Now, this is the favor right here. So I said, I got like 10 pages and 10 years old yet. And she was like, okay, we're going to do some sessions. Me and you one-on-one. And that began the journey of me and her began. Because I just knew that I had some abandons that I needed to deal with, because me crying over some man, that wasn't my norm. But like I said, God used that heartbreak to introduce himself to me. Like, I'm here. I've always been here. Let me tell you who I am. That's when it was like, oh, like, this is something that you, and the back on my story, you were here. You were always here. You protected me when no one else. You let me become a mother, treat them as a mother without me ever receiving that. And how can I do that without receiving it? That's a gift. That's like, I was like, that's nothing but you. If you ask, they'll be like, my sister raised me. And I'm like, y'all know I did. And they be like, yes, you did. But now that I've like had to think about it and be like, you know what? I did. And it's okay. Once again, you want to protect the adults and the parents. And you're like, isn't that bad? And then when you really think about it, like, oh, no, it wasn't that bad. It's just part of our journey. And that had to happen. Now that's something that's happening to the younger kids. Their parents have to work, or not there, and they're left. And then what happens? We'll just have to stand up and provide dinner, get them, the little ones, ready for bed for the next day, or be destroyed.
That's right. That is right. Wow. This is such a beautiful story. And I think what makes me love it so much is to see how far you have come and everything that you have been able to accomplish in spite of where you came from. And I think that that's really amazing. It's very encouraging, especially to those women who are watching us tonight and maybe right now they're going through a similar struggle, and they feel as though, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to be able to overcome this, or how I'm going to be able to deal with this. But your story tonight gives them hope that, you know what, I have done it. You can do it too. You can certainly do it too. So tell us, where can we get a copy of your book?
My book is on Amazon website, officialmiawallace.com. It's kind of everywhere, but if you want a copy and maybe some special gifts, go website and I got you.
Awesome. So you guys, if you were wondering, I got the plug for you. Go right ahead and make sure you head on over and get yourself a copy. Don't miss out. Don't miss out. Okay, so now you have gone through that. You've met your mentor, you met your therapist and your spiritual covering, everything, and one which is like is really fantastic. Like God just has a way of connecting everything. It's divine connections there. And now you've done that. Now tell us about some of the work that you have been able to do because you have become aware of, hey, I needed to do some work. Now I've done the work. How have you been able now to help others with what you have learned?
So the way that I'm helping others is actually with this platform. So one, I'm starting myself, but then on top of that, as I go to events for my book, I'm meeting people, and it's always usually at least one person that I'm there. So I'm like, God, why am I here? And then that person with me, and then we have a conversation. Or if the Holy Spirit's in the book, they need this book, I'm going to give them the book, no, free of charge, like, or you need it, or if my spirit, like if Holy Spirit right there, give them to them, and I'm just going to hand to them. So then that's where it's been going as far as helping others. And then I speak up, I notice, and show them that it is a faith way to do this. It's not just trying to fight it the natural, it's spiritual. They don't understand that it's an actual spiritual warfare behind this. So if you don't know the tools or understand like what I'm supposed to do, you just feel, and when you feel defeated, you lose hope. And without the hope, then you're not going to be able to walk in your victory because you already have it. So it's just like, okay, let me give you some tools and some strategies. And as God begins to grow the platform more, it's like, okay, God, this is something that's really needed, because although some rates are in other communities like the African American community or in other countries, the rates are just growing higher and higher because no one is speaking on it or bringing it to light, and then also giving the perspective of the biblical perspective of it as well.
Wow. I love what you said too as well, when you said, if the Spirit that leads you to give a but you will give. And I think that that's fantastic, because there's some people that may not even recognize that they need the help, and you giving it to them, the Spirit God just knows how to connect it. And they may get it now, they may not read it right away, but something may happen and they may be reminded, pick up this book. And then there you go. They get that healing that they've been looking for. So that's really amazing that you're so obedient to Holy Spirit. So I have to ask, so to that woman who is watching right now, who is in a similar struggle, if you had that opportunity right now to speak to her, she's watching right now, what would you say to her to encourage her based on where she's at?
I would say to cry out to God. Cry out to God, whether you've lost someone by suicide, if you're currently battling with suicide, even if you know someone and you want to help and you might not know what quite to say or do, but you see that they're suffering in silence. You ask the Father, you ask Holy Spirit, because Holy Spirit is with us, and you say, help me figure out the way. Or if you're the one that's in the battle, you're going to surrender. Father, I give this to you. I'm not going to try to letting it go. And where it falls, that's where it's going to fall. And then you have to just let that fall and don't pick it back up, because sometimes we'll let it go, but then we go back and pick it back up, and then we're struggling even more, because that's what the enemy, he wants to play with our mind. And so one thing that I stand on too at this moment is transforming our mind. It says don't conform to the world, so don't pay attention to what's going on. It may mean, let me get off social media for a minute and let me renew my mind. And the way that I do that is I did what I'm thinking. I do what is right, even though I'm going against it, but I know that I have to do what is right in this moment. So I keep doing it. It becomes a nature, like natural, like, okay, now I'm waking up and I'm doing this. But your real source is your Father in heaven. You ask him, help me win this battle. You already sent Jesus, but how do I walk in it? And then you spend some time in the Bible and you spend time looking at it. One thing I do is I do Bible studies on what I'm going through. If I feel frustrated, I'm going to look it up and I'm going to see what scriptures apply to that. If I'm feeling overlooked, I'm going to look that up. If I'm feeling depressed, anxiety, whatever I'm going through, Jesus or somebody in that Bible went through it and they got a strategy of how they got through it. It's a resource to get us through our lives. So I do that and I ask for my resources. Sometimes I'll depend on what I know, and sometimes it'll take me further down in a dark path and it'll drag me so deep that I'm like, okay, how did I even get here? But the Father, he will send someone and they will call me, and you start making your support people. You know your top 3. Jesus had his 3. You get your 3 that I can depend on. You ask for him, Father, send me 3 that I can call to, that I can support me any time of the day or the night. Anybody who knows that I'm suffering because I lost somebody from this, somebody that I can cry out to and be vulnerable with, that I can trust and they can trust. Sometimes we got to also give it back, depending on where's my community. Because something that I know that is very important to have in this walk of life is we need community. We need a system. We need that if I can't pray the way I needed to, you can go over and you pray for me and we intercede for each other, or you may have the strategy. So it's just finding what works for me in my journey, but you ask God, you go to him first. If you put him first, everything else must align. So that's what I would definitely tell anyone that's suffering in this moment.
Wow, powerful, 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 powerful. Wow, I told you guys it was going to be another powerful story, another powerful story. So we're coming close to the end, but before we go, I really want to highlight what you said there just now. You said ask for 3. I thought that was just so powerful. Ask for 3. You just want 3 to walk with you. So if that's where you are, go ahead. Don't be ashamed. Don't be shy. Ask God. He will supply because he is able to do it. So now you have been doing such great work. You're doing a lot of stuff. So tell us what's up next for you. What are you working on? Where can we find you? For those persons who are watching right now, they're like, oh my God, I need to connect with her like right away. Tell us where we can find you.
I am on Mia Wallace on all social media platforms and YouTube. I'm currently working on my 3rd book. I have a journal and I'm working on a writing program to help those who are suffering with trauma, but to help them and to start with the children, but I think God in it for the adults as well, because we all have some trauma that we need to release.
That's right. That is absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Okay, good. That's amazing. So what you say, okay, based on everything you've gone through, if you had an opportunity to just get a new life, when I say get a new life, do it differently. Like if you had an opportunity where you didn't have to go through what you went through, would you accept it?
Because I've learned that it had to happen. So even if in a new life, it may not have been the mom, it could have been a father, it could have been, but what is destined for us is going to happen. It has to create forms that we all have. Like we're all sent here for something. So no matter what the destination, whatever journey any take, it may be different. Some of those things that we still need to go through may hop on some of those new paths as well. So one thing that I know for sure, we're going to survive. We just got to go through the process. We just got to walk with God and not do it on our own. Because when we're on our own in our own strength, that's when we just feel defeated. Because I learned that the hard way. I was like, strong, I got this. And no, I was broken and I was crying and I was like, whoa. Took all the pieces and mended to something most beautiful that you can just never imagine. When he says he'll give you more than you can until you really truly experience it, you're like, whoa, I'm in South Africa and I'm speaking to people on suicide prevention, and do they even want to about this? And then you're like, yes. And then you're crying out after that because this is you. This is not me at all. So it's just like with him. It ain't easy. I'm not the easy walk. But as you surrender to him and just into the journey and the path he's taking you on, it becomes just a life that suppresses your understanding because you're like, this is crazy going on all around me and I'm going to survive and I'm going to make it. And it's all because of God. So it's just trusting that, which is not, but it can be done. The more you just talk to him and be like, God, this ain't feeling right. And you just be honest. I think he already knows who we are. So just be yourself with him and put on no facade of like, oh, Father, no, just be, this is what's happening. I can't. And he's like, I know, get to me. I can. And then that's when it's like, okay, I get it. You got this.
Wow. So just before we go, I have to ask, because as you were sharing just now, it just hit me. Oh my goodness, I did ask this question. You know, based on what you shared about your family, being ashamed and, the guilt and everything of the passing of your mom, what happened when you told them that, hey, I'm going to tell my story? When you decided that you were going to write your book, how did they receive that? Did they receive it well? Did they support you on it? How was that process for you?
So with my dad, he was already passed away. The only person that the enemy used was my grandmother, which was her mom. So he was like, if you write this book, she's going to be so devastated. She's going to hate you. All these lies he was throwing at me. So then I was like, okay, I'm not going to lie. I was nervous, but I didn't tell anybody until the day before it was publishing. This is coming out and it's nothing we can do about it. It's coming out. And my grandmother, she read it, and like one day, like, I am so glad you did this. It was the so opposite eyes. It was like, I am proud of you. And then I was like, so did I make anything up? Is it all true? Because some of the story as I'm telling the journey. So the enemy wanted to say to me, he was like, you don't know, you don't remember this and that, just putting all these lies towards me. And my grandmother was like, no, this is what it is. Like, it was beautiful. And even to bring up the shame and the guilt, she was one who was like feeling guilty about it, in my opinion. Like, she still hasn't sat down and spoke about it, but now she's 94. Just press her on it. It's just like, you read it, you're okay with it, and so we're going to move forward. And she knows that all across the world, just spreading light on the darkness of suicide. Proud. And she's just like, rest some, baby. You're all over the place. So it's just like, okay. And my siblings, they supported me because this was something that always was following me around, like this. So it was just like, once I let it out, I had an event last Saturday and my sisters were with me, and my sister was like, I told her everything. And I'm like, no, she did. And then someone asked the same question, and they said, we saw that she was hurting by this. Just glad she got it out. So it was just like, okay, like, I support of everyone who mattered, who affect me if they didn't.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That is amazing. That's amazing. Guys, I'm telling you, I hope that you are encouraged here tonight, because if you have a story just the same, you know that you can tell it and let it out. I know sometimes you're afraid because you don't know how persons are going to receive it. And like she shared, you want to be very careful about playing into the hands of the enemy with those voices that come to just sit on your shoulder and tell you lies. You want to listen to God's voice and only God's voice, because you're doing it not only to free yourself, but you're doing it to help free others. And that's exactly what you have done. You have been able to free others. I'm so sure that persons are here right now and they're feeling that, that release, like, oh my goodness, it's okay. It's really okay. So guys, if you have not done it already, if you have not subscribed to this channel, then what are you waiting for? Take this link, share it with a friend. Make sure you invite them to come on so that they can watch it for themselves, and leave us some comments below, because we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what you're thinking so that we can also interact with you as well. So we're coming to a close, but before we close out tonight, I have to ask, is there anything that you would like to share that maybe I didn't get an opportunity to ask you, but is really resting on your heart and you would really love to share with the Queens community tonight?
I just want to say you won this journey of life. Any lie, don't believe it. And I know sometimes that thought is in your own voice. As you're thinking, you're hearing yourself say it, but it's not you. You've already won. And just that, like, now my life is to walk out the victory. Like, I'm not in the battle to win. I've already won. So when you walk as the victor, already has the crown, and the one, it's like, win. We got this. So just hold on to that fact, that truth. They're always there. There's nothing that you could ever do to separate the love from you. He loves you for everlasting life, for eternal life. So then you just be like, okay, I have love, so there's nothing more that you can walk away and just feel. I know that sometimes the burden is heavy, but he said he carried all of our burdens. So believe it and trust and try it. Just try it. Nothing to lose.
Wow, wow, wow. You have nothing to lose. Just win. I love it. So beautiful. Mia, thank you so, so, so much for coming on. And thank you for being so transparent here tonight and sharing your story with our ladies who are watching here tonight. I am sure that they have enjoyed it. Before we go, I want you to tell us again where we can find you for those persons who want to go ahead and follow you and also purchase your book, just in case they forgot. Just give them a reminder of where they can find you.
I am on official Mia Wallace social media platform, including YouTube. I am officialmiawallace.com is my website, and I would love all of you.
Awesome, 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 awesome. So, guys, you have heard it here. We had an amazing time tonight sharing with you. And we're so happy that you are here. Remember, if you have not done it already, go ahead, share the link with a friend. And don't worry, if you came in late and you didn't get to watch it from the beginning, it's fine. It's going to be up. You can come back and replay as many times as you want. But remember, do leave us a comment because we want to hear your thoughts. And we're super excited to have you here. So, whatever you do tonight, make sure it's fun and enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you on our next episode as we continue season 4 of Battered Bruised Not Broken. Have a great night. Goodbye.
Bye.